And welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and I might stop buying Magic cards. I know that's a pretty bold statement. It might be a hyperbolic one as well. I don't think I'll ever actually stop completely buying Magic cards, but things are starting to get a little ridiculous. There's a lot I want to talk about in this video. And it's something I've been thinking about for a while, and it has been sparked by Modern Horizons 3 mostly. And of course, I did my review of that set, talked about a bunch of cards. And one thing I talked about in particular is there's just so many auto includes from this set. There's so many, strict upgrades, what we call power creep, sometimes we call as well. It's been a thing that's been happening obviously for a long, long time. And it is making me not want to buy Magic cards. And I'll make my case for it, okay? And I'm just going to say there's a chance I don't buy any Modern Horizons 3 cards. And the reason why is because there's too many to buy that it makes me want to buy none. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but I will get into it. Of course, a big issue here, and I only play Commander. I don't play any other format. For the people that play, Commander and Modern and Legacy, it's like, wow, like you must spend all your money on buying cards because it's so ridiculous the amount of stuff they're coming out with, but also the must-have cards that you have to get. For someone who only plays Commander, well, okay, that doesn't really save me much because every set is now for Commander, and of course, Modern Horizons 3, which is an actual Modern set, as most people have pointed out, is more engineered towards Commander players than it is Modern players that even have precons, which is absurd. I remember when they first started doing precons in Zendikar Rising, I think, right? I was like, what? Why is that necessary? First of all, I don't love precons, period, but we're doing Commander precons in every set now. That is when things started, in my opinion, to get a little too ridiculous. But I don't want to talk too much about that. I want to talk specifically about why I might actually stop buying Magic cards. I have gotten to a point with a lot of my decks, and I talked about this in my personal decks video, where they're just becoming frozen in time. At some point, aren't you going to get to some point with your Commander deck where you're just not going to be adding new cards? Like, it's already packed full. I've got a few decks now where it's like, okay, this new card comes out and I want to put in my Commander deck, but what am I going to take out? And every single set now has so many auto includes and so many must-haves and so many Commander staples now that I've gotten to a point, and I'm sure a lot of people have as well. This has happened to me a few times over the last couple of years where I see a card come out in a set and I'm like, oh, gotta have that great new removal spell. Let's say, for example, gotta have that. So I order a bunch of copies. I talked about this in my, I'm not sure what I called the video, but my box is just filled with these cards where I'm like, okay, Fateful Absence. How could they possibly make a better creature removal spell than that? 2 mana, destroy any creature or planeswalker. That's fantastic. I'll buy like 8 copies of it. And now all 8 copies are just sitting in my box, not getting used, right? Why? Because they're always coming up with better versions. This is the part that's starting to annoy me, is the constant upgrades, the constant auto includes, power creep, strict upgrades. And we saw this, of course, in Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Let's go a step back, right? And those 2 sets in a row, I think, is what's really starting to get me. Outlaws of Thunder Junction, we saw the spree cards. And the spree cards, of course, all of them are just like Commander auto includes, most of them anyway. And what I said about those cards is most of them are just strict upgrades. I mean, you got to put counter spells in your deck anyway, so why not put the spree card in? Because, of course, it's going to give you more options. You got to put a board wipe in anyway, so why not put that one in? Because it also gives you more options. So a lot of those spree cards were just strict upgrades. And so for that reason, you just take out whatever board wipe you had in already or whatever counterspell you had already, and you just slot that in instead. So I already did that with a bunch of my cards from my decks. And I actually really limited myself because I'm like, okay, well, I could just take whatever card out and of all of my decks and put those ones in, right? The same thing happened with Murders of Karlov Manor with a couple of cards, like Unexplained Absence, right? The removal spell. I'm like, okay, I guess I could just go and take Excise the Imperfect, which is a card I put in most of my white decks. And again, it hadn't even been around for a year. In a lot of cases, I had not even cast that spell in that deck, and now it's already getting replaced, right? That's happened a few times where I upgrade to a certain card, and before I even get a chance to actually cast it in a game, the next set or a set after that, I'm already a point where they've now power crept that card that I haven't even been able to actually cast yet. and I have to take it out of my deck and replace it with the new version. Excise the Imperfect is again, that's a perfect example of a card that in a couple of my decks, I never even had a chance to cast it before it is now getting removed and replaced with the next best version, right? The spree cards were really bad for that, where they're just better versions of everything, right? Whatever that card is doing in your deck already, that whatever version of a card you have, now you can just replace it with a spree card because it is also giving you these other options. So why not, right? Again, it becomes this why not culture. Why not put it in there? Why not? It's just a better version, right? Modern Horizons 3 is the worst version of that for a couple of reasons. And there is a few cycles here, and again, I talked about them at length already. Of course, the flares. The flares are, of course, free versions of other spells. And if you're already doing that, okay, well, this is just a free version. It's just a strict upgrade, right? Probably Flare of Cultivation is the best example of this. Cultivate is one of the most popular cards in the entire format. So why not just put a Flare of Cultivation in there? It's a strict upgrade. So if I got the money to throw around, I can just go out and buy like 7 copies of Flare of Cultivation and replace all my cultivates in all my decks with a strictly better version. So that there's an entire cycle of cards that is, for the most part, strict upgrades from stuff you're already playing in your deck. And obviously, for Commander players, again, that's a modern set. And if you look at all the versions of those flare cards, I had a few people comment on the video I did. They said, I don't know if any of those flares will get played in Modern. I don't play Modern anymore. They probably know better than I do. Haven't played in years. They said likely none of those flares will get played in Modern, despite the fact that they have a cast for free option. Because the effects are not, again, nobody ramps in Modern, I don't think, right? Obviously, counter spells, that would be the only one that's a maybe. Forcing your opponent to sacrifice a creature, who does that in Modern? Nobody. Copying instants and sorceries or giving your stuff hex, nobody does that. So none of those cards clearly were made for Modern players. They were all made for Commander players. And they're all going to be chase, fetch, go after cards that people are going to want. And of course, they are, for the most part, strict upgrades to cards that are already getting played in Commander. They know that, of course. Strict upgrade because you have the option to cast it for free. So why not go out and get them and replace that card you're already playing, right? The MDFC lands as well, and I talked about those. Most of those are just an easy replace. The 2-color lands in particular, most of those are, okay, well, I already have a tap land that gives me the 2 colors I need in my 2-color deck, so it's an easy swap out. I thought about this. I looked at all of them, and it's like, okay, any deck I have in that 2-color combination, it's an easy swap out to just take out any scry land or any land that enters the battlefield tapped or might enter the battlefield tapped with a 2-color land that gives me the colors I need, and then just has a fantastic spell on the front. Easy swap out. So now I got to run out and buy all of those. I'm giving myself a huge advantage there by doing so, right? So why wouldn't I do that? So there's a whole bunch more cards that I can just run out and buy. Just a strict upgrade from likely what you're already playing, and the monocolored ones as well. Again, this is another thing they're doing. They're doing the more modes thing, and they're also doing the, here's that card you were already playing in your deck already, but it's also a land on the back. So it's just better, right? So you got to get that for your Commander deck. I mean, and this will never end, right? This is why, and I know people will say, oh, you're being negative, or you're not going to stop buying cards. Don't be ridiculous. I'm seeing ahead here, and I'm seeing, why would I go and buy that card when in the next set they're just going to make a better version, and now I have to take that, right? And so now I haven't even used it yet. It's just going to end up collecting dust in my box, right? How long before they just do this with everything, right? This is a trend I'm starting to see. Even a fantastic card in the format, like a Farewell. How long before they print a Farewell, but it's also an MDFC land on the back? So that's just a strict upgrade to the Farewell you already have, because it also can enter the battlefield as lands, right? The MDFC lands here are the real perpetrators of this issue where, okay, now we can take any effect that you already have in your deck. Ramp, removal, whatever, a fight effect, whatever you already are playing in your deck, and we're just going to make it a land on the back, so it is a strict upgrade to what you're already doing in your deck. And so now you got to go get that because there's a better version out there, so we got to go buy it, right? It is what we call power creep, typically in Magic in general, but With commander cards, I'm seeing it as it's just a strict upgrade. A card that I saw just spoiled today. By the way, I'm making this video. You're not going to see this video for a couple of weeks. I'm making this video in the middle of spoiler season. The whole set has not even been spoiled yet. This is how I do things. I gotta talk about this thing, and so I'm gonna talk about it now. Fanatic of Rhonas just got spoiled today. 1 and a green, Snake Druid. It's a 1/4. Tap, add a green. Has Ferocious. Tap, add 4 green. Activate only if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. And eternalize 2 green. This is the most power creep card maybe I've ever seen. It is, again, strict upgrade. That's why. Power creep is one thing. It's one thing to make you have a Grizzly Bears in your deck for whatever reason, and they just make a strict up, like it's just now it's a 3/2 instead of a 2/2, or it's a 2/3 instead of, or whatever, or now it's got trample, or now you're just adding on. That's power creep. Something like Fanatic of Rhonas, I look at that and I'm going, okay, that's just a strict upgrade, right? Whisperer of the Wilds is a card I've had in my Questing Beast deck since I first put that deck together. I love the art. Fantastic art on that card. And I put it in the deck because, of course, the Ferocious ability works in that deck. That's one of the things I thought of when I made the deck is, okay, my commander has a power of 4, so it's very easy for me in any commander deck. That's the case. If your commander has a 4, and like in my Questing Beast deck, if you plan on having your commander in play a lot, it's very easy to have the Ferocious. So, of course, again, a 2-mana creature, it's a mana dork, adds a green, but if I have Ferocious, it now taps for 2 green. If my commander's out, because of course it has a power 4 or greater, and boy, does this guy look beyond pathetic compared to Fanatic of Rhonas. I mean, beyond pathetic. Same casting cost. Not only is this guy a 1/4, so it's got a bigger power and a bigger toughness. It's not just adding more. I mean, if it added 3 green with the Ferocious ability, that would be even more power crept. But not only that, it's adding 4 green with the Ferocious ability, and it also has Eternalize, which, by the way, means it's going to be a 4/4 when you bring it back, which enables the Ferocious all on its own. This is the most egregious form of power creep or strict upgrade, whatever you want to call it, that I've ever seen. And again, I can keep playing Whisper of the Wild, sure. Nothing wrong with that. But it's almost like, man, I almost feel like an idiot playing a Whisper of the Wild now. Playing that Grizzly Bears. When I mentioned Grizzly Bears, people are like, okay, why would you ever put a Grizzly Bears in your deck? Savannah Lions, there's a card that used to be so broken in Magic that they're like, oops, we screwed up. Creating a 2/1 creature for 1 mana is a mistake. We should have never done that, okay? That's where we are with Magic. That's the way things used to be. Oops, that card is broken. Sorry, we'll never do that again, right? Lightning Bolt, oops. Lightning Bolt was a card that when I first started playing Magic, the general consensus in the community was that card will never get reprinted, and I'm pretty sure they said that. That card will never get reprinted because 3 damage for 1 mana that's broken. So it's a broken card and it will never be reprinted. That was the general mentality when I first started playing. Of course, that was many, many moons ago. Boy, things have changed, right? And now it is non-stop with the constant upgrades, right? Again, Fanatic of Rhonas is absolutely absurdly power crept from a Whisper of the Wilds, which again, I don't know. Maybe I skipped a step. Maybe there's a Whisper of the Wilds that just is like an 0/3 and taps for 3 mana with Ferocious. Maybe I missed one. I don't know. But I still have Whisper of the Wilds in my Questing Beast deck, and now I see Fanatic of Rhonas, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I have to get that from... And that's the mentality I have now. Again, that's why I'm talking about this, because I now have the mentality of, oh, I guess I have to get that card. It's not even an exciting feeling anymore. It's I guess I have to get that card because it's just a strict upgrade to what I'm already playing in the deck, right? That's the part that I don't like. Let's talk about my Shana deck. And I just grabbed that deck. That was the one deck where, and again, as cards come out, this is how I do it. A set comes out, and after, I'm thinking about, oh, that'd be a good card. Obviously most people do that. That'd be a good fit in this deck. That'd be a good fit in my whatever deck or this deck or that deck. And as cards are coming out, I think about that. And again, spoilers have not even been completed yet as I'm making this video. And I quickly combed through, and being conservative, I grabbed all the cards that I would really like for my Shana deck. Go check out my video where I talk about it. Obviously, it's a creature-heavy deck. So here's the cards, and I just went through, and just for my Shana deck alone, Flare of Cultivation. Obviously, because it's a very creature-heavy deck, it's also a sacrifice theme where I'm sacrificing my creatures a lot. and I have a little bit of recursion theme. So obviously Flare of Cultivation, great. It's a sack outlet. It's essentially free ramp in that deck. And obviously Flare of Fortitude, slam dunk in that deck. I got to protect my team. Free way to do that? Sure, yes please. And also I want to sacrifice my creatures. Shifting Woodland, the land cycle that I talked about, that is just an easy slot into any deck. Any commander deck, any green commander deck can throw this card in there. And at some point, maybe you'll get Delirium. Again, I do fill my graveyard, I would say, relatively fast in that deck. So getting Delirium is not super difficult, and it becomes a copy of a permanent card in my graveyard. Why not, right? Obviously, again, I'm going to have lots of permanents in my graveyard. 6 is a fantastic fit in that deck. It's a creature. I do want a lot of the things I'm doing, I want in creature form. And 6 is fantastic because, again, those lands I draw, and I do have a low mana curve in that deck. I can draw lands later in the game and now just start pitching them to recast my creature. Again, it's a recursion, essentially a recursion option for my creatures that I keep sacrificing. So that's a fantastic fit. White Orchid Phantom, removal on a creature, right? Obviously, I'm doing that a lot in the deck. So this is land removal, and I believe I have Acidic Slime in that deck for that reason. I'm trying to do things in creature form. So, of course, non-basic land removal on a creature, yes, please. Also, is that 2 mana value? I have a very return to the ranks, stuff like that. So, slam dunk, right? What am I up to? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards. Strength of the Harvest, again, it's that MDFC. This is the one that I talked about where, again, okay, if you're playing a white-green deck, well, it's the white-green land on the back, and on the front, enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each creature and our enchantment you control. Again, that's literally exactly what I want to be doing in that deck. I want to be, I use the greater good effects, so I want my commander to be huge, or whatever creature. Again, I can throw this on a different creature, sacrifice that creature, draw a ton of cards. I want to be sacrificing my creature. All of that. It all fits with what I'm doing. Disciple of Freyalise, again, like it's almost like they're printing these cards for my deck. It's a creature. It's also an MDFC land. Again, this is another one that I think could probably go in any green deck. I could put this in my Questing Beast deck as well, because why not? Later in the game, I got to draw cards. It enters the battlefield, sacrifice a creature, doing the greater good thing. You know, I guess it's doing the Momentous Fall thing, which I also have in the deck. So I gain X life and draw X card where X is the creature's power. It's literally doing what I do in that deck. And it's also a land on the back, so I could easily take out a land and put this in. Witch Enchanter, again, this is one of the most auto-include cards from the entire set. I could order one of these for every single one of my white decks. I love creatures with ETBs that are removal. It destroys artifacts and enchantments. Again, this is a card that if it came out 2 or 3 years ago, I would buy like whatever 5, 6 copies and put them in all my white decks. Because why wouldn't I? It's a land that also can be artifact enchantment removal, right? It's essentially a white Boseiju, kind of, in a way, right? Isn't it? Fantastic. Why wouldn't I? And it's a creature. It's removal in creature form. That's why I want it in my Shana deck. Collective Resistance is not a creature, but it is a, it's one of the most auto-include cards in the entire set, as I talked about. Because, again, this is what they're doing. They're doing, oh, you're already doing this thing in your deck? We'll just throw some more stuff in there that you can do. You already have a Nature's Claim in your deck. Nature's Claim is a card I used to put in all my green decks. That card is now getting power crept out of the format, I think, which is ridiculous to say, because I think Collective Resistance I would just rather have. I mean, it costs more, but you can destroy an artifact and an enchantment. For 3 mana, I can destroy an artifact and an enchantment, and I can also use it to give a creature hexproof and indestructible. So this doesn't specifically fit my Shana deck, but it's a card that I could put in any green deck. So I could definitely put it in there. And Thraben Charm is one of my favorite cards from the set. This is like the best charm I think I've ever seen. One of, for sure. It's definitely up there. I did my charm video, funny enough. Last year, I ranked all the charms. This would be right towards the top of the list. Deals damage equal to twice the number of creatures you control the target creature. Well, I guess I got a ton of creatures. Again, this is not a creature, but I got like 7 creatures in play. So this is just going to kill any creature because it's going to do 14 damage to any creature. Again, unless that creature's got indestructible, this is 2 mana, remove any creature. But also, I can destroy an enchantment, which is super important in Commander. Also, I can exile any number of target players' graveyards, which is fantastic. That's why I specifically want this in my Shana deck. Any white deck where you want to save your graveyard, because this is exile any number of target players' graveyards. This is 2 mana instant speed. That might be the best mode on this card, because I can exile all my opponent's graveyards and save mine at instant speed. That's amazing. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cards. 10 cards that are essentially almost auto includes or strict upgrades for my one deck, my Shana deck, and this set has not yet been completely spoiled. So that's where I'm at, okay? And again, a lot of the cards I mentioned, like Collective Restraint, Thraben Charm, Witch Enchanter, White Orc, like a lot of these cards are like, okay, those are auto includes in all my decks. The ones that are green and white, obviously. And that's where we're at. We are at a point, and this is getting into a bigger topic. Start getting a little conspiratorial here and a little, again, maybe negative, but that's the way it is. If you are a Wizards of the Coast employee, you're watching that part of the video and going, wow, he's grabbing 10 cards for his one deck. That's fantastic. And of course, that's what they want, as a lot of people have been pointing out. If you have been playing Magic as long as me, you will know that Standard used to be the format. That was the format. It was the most popular format. That's the one everyone played. And of course, Standard is a rotating format. And that drove sales. Getting into something I don't know if I've ever talked about this on my channel, and I'm talking about it now. That drove sales. And of course, the reason it drove sales is because it's a rotating format. That's how Magic worked. Are there other rotating formats? I guess Brawl would be the rotating commander-like format, which obviously is the reason, as a lot of people pointed out, why Wizards of the Coast created the Brawl format, because they wanted a rotating commander-like format. I don't know if anyone still plays it. But Standard drove sales. Everyone played it. I only played Standard for my first, however many years, 5, 6, 10 years in playing Magic, until I started playing Modern, which was, I don't know, shortly after the Modern format was created. I only played Standard. So, of course, when you play Standard, you need the new cards. You need them. You're going to be left out in the cold if you don't, right? It's going to be really hard for you to be competitive and to keep up if you're not buying the new cards come out, because usually with new sets, with Standard sets, they would specifically print cards, and they still do, that deal with whatever's currently going on in the meta in Standard, right? So you really needed to buy them. So that drove sales. Of course, Modern came out, and I would say Modern players still do definitely buy a lot of the newer cards that come out, but not nearly as much as the Standard players. It's like, okay, here's one card, here's two cards that I need for my Modern deck. And I think that also led to the power creep thing. That is something that they started doing where, okay, well, now Modern, and that became, when I started playing Modern, I think it was the most popular format in the game. Now we have to start printing cards for Modern in Standard sets so that the Modern players will go out and buy them. And then, of course, when Commander became the most popular format in the game, then they started doing that, as we all know. But now what they're doing is, because they've printed so many Commander cards now over the last 4, 5, 6 years, now what they're doing is they're doing more and more of these strict upgrades and the power creep, where they're making cards. This is what I think, and they very much did it with Modern Horizons 3. Let's print a bunch of cards in this set that Commander players are going to want, or Commander players absolutely have to have, so that they'll run out and buy it, because it's a strict upgrade to what they're already playing. They're essentially turning Commander into a rotating format. That's what they're doing. They're making it so that Commander players have to run out and buy the new set, whatever that is. I remember when I first started playing Commander, and I've talked about this a lot, there would be that 1 or 2 cards from every set. A new set would come out. And when I started playing Commander, they already were starting to, this is like 2015, they were already printing Commander sets, and they were already starting to print cards in regular sets for Commander players, clearly, but they weren't doing it nearly as much. Again, it was, here's a Commander set, here's C15 or C16, there you go, Commander players, have fun. And then they would go back to the Standard set, and it would be pretty much entirely, they wouldn't care so much. But they were doing it a little bit, right? They weren't printing 40 Commanders or 40 legendary creatures in every set, but they were starting to up the numbers a little bit. It was starting to move in that direction. But a Standard set would come out, and there'd be 1 or 2 cards that I would want. And that's fine. Now a Standard or Modern set comes out, and it's like, oh, wow, there's 10 cards that I need for one deck. What the hell is, right? Clearly, this is what they're trying to do. Again, this isn't a huge discovery I'm making here. Obviously, people are aware of that. But the mentality that you get into here, that, again, I'm trying to alert people to, and why I might just stop buying Magic cards, is because they are making it so that Commander is now a rotating set. And they're doing that by the next set that comes out is just going to have a bunch more auto includes that I need to run out and buy. right? Every set now has at least a dozen Commander staples, Commander auto includes that you have to go out and buy because they're strict upgrades to the thing that you're already playing. Again, why would I go buy these cards when the next set is just going to have, a Flare of Cultivation, but it will cost 2 mana instead of 3? I mean, obviously that's not going to happen, but as an example, oh, okay, well, I went out and paid $20 for a Flare of Cultivation, and now the next set just has a better version, and I'm going to end up replacing it, right? And the other thing that ends up happening is then your deck just becomes good stuff, right? What are the 10 cards I'm going to take out of my Shana deck? I love my Shana deck. It's maybe my favorite deck to play. It's fantastic. Now I got to find room for all these cards. Yeah, I'm not even going to do that. Again, I look at my decks, and again, I talked about this in my personal decks video. I really like where all my decks are at. So that's another reason why I'm just not going to waste my time buying all these cards. Sure, they're better versions, but what do I care about that, right? I know a lot of people watch this video and they'll be like, okay, so you're just not going to, you have these better versions of cards, but you're just not going to buy them. So you just want your deck to be worse. Guess what? I'm already not playing Sol Ring. I got 20 copies of Sol Ring sitting in my box right now that I'm not using. I could easily put those in my decks and make my decks better. That's already a thing for me. Just playing cards because they're better versions is already a thing I don't do. So that's another reason why, do I really need to buy these cards? And, again, we're still in spoiler season here. Obviously, when you're watching this video, it has been completed. I don't know where I'm actually at. I don't know if I'm actually going to not buy cards ever again. That's a bold statement. But, I'm thinking, okay, if there's 10 cards that I need for my Shana deck, and okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to limit myself to 2 and just pick the 2 that I like the most? Maybe. I guess I could do that. I really, and I said this about my Patron of the Kitsune deck when that, Werefox Bodyguard came out. That card is so perfect in that deck, and I absolutely love it in there. And when that card came out, man, that got me excited. That's what I like to see. When a set comes out, that one card that is such a perfect fit in my one deck. And I'm going to find room for that card because that card, it just feels like it was printed specifically for my deck, even though obviously it was not. Lost in the Maze was one that came out in Murders of Karlov Manor that it's like, okay, that is such a perfect slam dunk in my Abishon deck. And especially, again, when you have an underwhelming commander and an unpopular one, having that one card that so perfectly fits with your commander, it's like, oh, that's great. That I'm going to run out and get. And of course, I'm going to put that in my Abishon deck. And again, those are really old decks. Both of those decks are very old, and I like the way they play, and I like all the cards in there. And I have a lot of fun cards that I just like playing. And I don't want to take out one of those fun, interesting cards just to put in a strict upgrade or a battle removal spell or a free counter spell or whatever. And the only time I'm going to make room is when a card like that, like Lost in the Maze or Werefox Bodyguard, a card that is just such a neat little, interesting, perfect fit with my commander. Those are the only cards I think I'm going to go after. The strict upgrades and the power creep cards and the auto includes and it's just a better removal spell because it's a Nature's Claim and a Tameo Safekeeping combined into one. And you play both of those cards in your deck. So why wouldn't you put that in there, right? Those kinds of cards, like we just added another mode. It's a commander staple already, but we tacked on another mode. So it's a strict upgrade. Or it's a commander staple already, but we put a land on the back. So it's just a better version. Like they're just going to keep doing that, guys. They're just going to keep on doing that. And all the cards that you think you absolutely need from this set, you're just going to find out in the next set, they've just printed a better version, right? Or maybe 2-3 sets from now, for sure a year from now. Like maybe it'll be a commander set. Whenever the next commander set comes out, that is going to be the set where you have just went out and splurged and bought a ton of cards from this set. And it's going to be like, oh, there's just a better removal spell now. So, or a better whatever. I promise you, there's going to be a lot of people out there, I think, and I know this is going to happen to me, that you're going to run out, buy all these cards, try to find room for them in your commander decks, which is probably going to be difficult for a lot of people. I know it is for me. And then maybe 1 or 2 or 3 sets later, you're just going to end up taking those cards out again. And maybe you didn't even get a chance to play them before you took them out, right? So that's why for me, I might not buy any cards from this set. This is, and I said it a few times already in videos, during the spoilers and all that. This is the most auto-include set I've ever seen. Obviously, they did it on purpose. I have never seen so many auto-includes for commander decks in a set before, which again, ironically, isn't a Modern Horizons set. I have never seen so many. There's so many. Obviously, we know why they're doing it, and you might be better off just not buying any cards. And I might be doing that. Again, if there is a card that it's like, okay, that is the Lost in the Maze, Werefox Bodyguard, the perfect fit for a deck where, okay, I'm going to try to find room for it. That would be the one exception. But other than that, I might just stop buying Magic cards. And you know, as a lot of people have also pointed out, they just don't like the direction things are going with the power creep and the auto includes and all that. And the only way to fight back, I don't know. I mean, I know those are strong words, but the best way to fight back is you just don't buy them, right? You just stop buying those cards. And that's likely what I'm going to be doing for that reason and a lot of others as well. It is going to be, and maybe what I'll do, you know, again, I like to actually, for me, I actually like to put restrictions on myself and I actually like to set rules for myself. Everyone has their own way of doing it. What I might do is every time a new set comes out, I might say one card per deck. That's it. I will find one card from this set that is the best fit in my deck and I will buy that. And even then, like I have, I think 14 decks right now. That's 14 cards every single set that I have to run out and buy. That's still a lot. Like we got sets coming out constantly, right? So now that's 14 cards every single set, only putting one in each deck. And again, every single set that comes out, I now have to find room in one of my decks for a card, right? So even there, that's kind of a lot. I don't know. I honestly, I haven't even looked through, and I'm probably not going to, like I usually do, which is go through the entire set and pick out all the cards that I want for all of my decks. Again, a card like Thraben Charm, I would go out and buy like 8 copies of it so I could put it in all my white decks. I'm not going to do that. I don't know what the number would be. I bought a lot of cards from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. I didn't think I was going to buy any. And it's like, okay, well, I really like that, you know, the Aven, the bird that counters spells. I really like that card a lot. So I'm like, I probably should get, you know, I want to get a few copies of that card because it actually fits really well, again, in my Shana deck because it's a creature that's a counter spell. So it's a perfect fit, right? And I have not even played my Shana deck. Again, this is another thing I really don't love. I have not played my Shana deck since I added the cards from Outlaws of Thunder Junction, and I'm already thinking of replacing a bunch of cards. I mean, no, I'm not, like, it's too much. I'm sorry, you shot yourself in the foot, Wizards of the Coast, by doing this, okay? And as a lot of people, and again, I'm jumping on a bandwagon here, one that has existed. I got patrons that say I'm skipping this set, skipping that set. I haven't skipped a set in a long time. Yeah, I don't think I have not bought a card from a set in a very long time. Commander Masters was one where I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm buying any cards from this set. I ended up making an Omarthus deck, so obviously I did buy an Omarthus from that set. I don't know if I bought anything else. I think I'm done. I think I'm done with just, okay, here's all the cards I got to run out and buy for my decks. Yeah, I'm not doing it anymore. So am I going to stop buying Magic cards entirely? No, I don't think I am. I might buy a couple of cards from this set. Again, the ones that are just absolute perfect fits in my commander decks, but I'm just not doing the power creep, the strict upgrades, hey, this is a better version of that card you're already playing, but it also has another mode, or it's also an MDFC land. I'm just not doing that. I'm not doing it. Sorry. That's the way I feel about it. Going forward, there's already a lot to talk about in this format. Other than the new cards coming out, I certainly don't have a problem with that. I mean, I'll talk about new cards. I definitely will. Obviously, you kind of have to, right? This is a big deal. This is a big video. It's going to be, it's a big change for me. It's you know, I'm not trying to sound too negative, but this is the way I'm doing it. You guys can do whatever you like. Take my advice or not. But again, I'm just pointing out that you will likely run out and buy a bunch of I must have these cards from Modern Horizons 3. And then a couple sets later, maybe the next set, oh, now all of a sudden it's obsolete already, right? You know, and that doesn't feel very good. So that's where I'm at. You guys let me know in the comments below what you think. Just winging it in this video. This is just how I feel. Literally, I have no script here. I'm just letting you guys know how I feel personally about just the overwhelming amount of cards we've been getting lately. And this set was sort of like the icing on the cake for me, with regards to how I actually have been feeling for a while now. You guys let me know how you feel in the comments below. That is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.